By the power vested in me, I hereby constitute this assembly as a legal congregation of the University of Pretoria. During this assembly, degrees, diplomas and certificates, with all the associated rights and privileges, will be conferred and awarded on the candidates whose names appear in the program. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin by requesting you to join us in a few moments of silent prayer or meditation to give thanks for the achievements of our students. Thank you. As Vice Principal of the University of Pretoria, I would like to extend a very hearty word of welcome to all of you at this graduation ceremony. In particular, I would like to welcome the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences, Professor Diache, the Dean of the Faculty of Veterinary Sciences, Professor Abernethy, the Deputy Director in the Department of Enrollment and Student Administration, Mr. Isaacs, chairpersons of schools, heads of department, directors, emeriti professors, and honorary professors, and lecturers and their spouses. Also, the supervisors and co-supervisors and external examiners of the doctorandi, representatives of the Student Representative Council, all of those to whom degrees will be conferred and diplomas and certificates awarded this afternoon, and all spouses, parents, and other parties and dignitaries who we may not be aware of. Ladies and gentlemen, and graduates, welcome to the spring season graduation ceremony for the faculties of Health Sciences and Veterinary Sciences in the University of Pretoria. This is an important occasion for the University of Pretoria, but of course, much more significantly, it is of importance to you, our valued students, who are about to be awarded your degrees and to be formally and publicly recognized for your achievements. Graduation ceremonies are also of importance to your parents, partners, other family members, maybe your children, and to everyone else who has supported you, cared about you, and helped you to reach this extraordinary and life-changing stage in your lives, and who, at least for some, are here with you today. This may have been a long journey for all of you, and today is the moment when you can celebrate reaching your goal. For graduates, this is a moment when life will change forever. University of Pretoria has graduated over 250,000 students in its 110 years, and you join a very eminent community of alumni who have graduated from this, one of South Africa's leading universities, and one which is recognized internationally, especially in your disciplinary areas. A degree from a university as prestigious as UP is a sign of your worth as one of few highly qualified people in South Africa, whose critical skills and knowledge have been accredited by this university, skills and knowledge which are urgently needed and highly valued in our society. In this ceremony, we will award 14 doctoral degrees, a total of 95 postgraduate degrees, and 23 certificates and undergraduate degrees, meaning that 80% of the awards this afternoon are at postgraduate level. The University of Pretoria, being almost 110 years old, is one of the largest and most highly respected universities in South Africa and in Africa, with over 50,000 students. We have 9 faculties, 4 of which are specialists in nature, your faculties being part of the university's spread of dedicated campuses. We are very proud of the progress we've made, particularly in recent years, in our international standing. In 2016 and 2017, UP has improved its position in several of the main global ranking systems, including the Quacquarelli-Simmons or QS World Rankings and very recently the Times Higher Education rankings. And we maintain our position at number 4 in South Africa. In fact, in some areas, number 3. In spite of various ongoing challenges, we are one of the few South African universities that has steadily and consistently continued to improve our research performance. Internationally, it is now the case that more than half of our research publications are the result of collaborative work with international colleagues, many of them from these 2 faculties. Further testimony to the quality of the university and its staff is the fact that well over 30 of our academics are in the top 1% in the world in their field, and we have over 250 research partnerships across 70 countries. It is also a pleasure to be able to tell you today that the Faculty of Health Sciences is our most rapidly developing faculty with respect to research excellence. Recent analyses have shown us that the university's research in medicine is in fact our most productive field, and our medical research has the greatest impact of all the fields in which we conduct research in terms of recognition as measured by citations, which is the way they do it. Our work in the fields of clinical medicine, public health, immunology, microbiology, biochemistry, genetics has contributed significantly to our growing international standing, and the faculty is at the forefront in fields of direct relevance in the 21st century: nuclear medicine, molecular medicine, sports medicine, neuroendocrinology, and cancer. These are fields where we can look forward to seeing exciting progress and to UP making very significant contributions to solving global health challenges. Similarly, the Faculty of Veterinary Sciences enjoys an excellent international reputation. In the most recent academic ranking of world universities, better known to some as the Shanghai rankings, our veterinary science research positions us at number 30 in the world. We have the only veterinary sciences faculty in South Africa, and to be among the world's best is something of which we are very proud. Some of you may be aware of some of the cutting-edge research which is being done in the Faculty of Veterinary Sciences, related to animal health, wildlife health and management, including some internationally groundbreaking research on genetic identification to help prevent rhino poaching, for example, and on current topical issues such as viral poultry diseases. Our veterinary colleagues are also strongly involved in research into the implications of animal diseases on human health and well-being, with an emphasis on the country's interfaces between wildlife, human life, and rural farming. Over past centuries, the practices of human and animal health have become increasingly specialized as discoveries in various disciplines such as anatomy, chemistry, biology, bacteriology, contributed significantly to the treatment of diseases. But in more recent times, understanding of the relationship between the environment, both natural and man-made, and medicine and veterinary sciences, and the identification of agents and factors that link animal and human disease and health have become increasingly important to the work in both fields. This approach, sometimes called the One Health approach, has become a key point of intersection between the two disciplinary areas of human health and animal health. Through such approaches, our health sciences and veterinary faculties are deeply committed to finding solutions to the regional and global challenges we face through continued high-impact 21st century research. Our faculties are also equally committed to the training of professionals who have comprehensive, up-to-date understanding of the complex and interrelated environment in which they work and in which we all live. So, graduates, what you have learned while studying here at UP puts you at the forefront of your disciplines and at the frontiers of research and practice. Your skills are increasingly and critically necessary in our own society and across the continent, as are the values that you have developed. Your expertise and knowledge are essential to global goals too, including addressing agendas such as the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, you possibly know, as medical students, one of the Millennium Development Goals is combating malaria, the focus of one of our leading UP institutes, the Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control, whose collaborating network includes researchers from both the Faculty of Health Sciences and the Faculty of Veterinary Sciences. On another note, you will also be aware that 2015 and 2016 were difficult times, and a few moments earlier this year as well, as protests interrupted normal academic activities across the country, and the impact of the Fees Must Fall campaign continued to be felt by South African universities. Much of the protest activity at University of Pretoria was contained, partly and importantly, because the university worked with students who, as the internal stakeholders, were prepared to engage with the executive and senior management on matters that affect students. In this way, progress was made in establishing open channels of communication, and fortunately, UP lost relatively little academic time and successfully completed exams in both 2015 and 2016. That you, as our senior students, persisted despite the challenges is a tribute to your determination to succeed in achieving your degrees and to sustaining the values to which you are committed. Today, then, is a reason for great celebration for you. You have achieved much. Your disciplines have an ever-enriching history, and you have indispensable contributions to make. In this complex society, each of you has an essential and critical role to play. In concluding, I would like to say that I hope you will make the most of what today means. Celebration with all of those who are here to support you. Be proud and never forget what society needs of you and of how much you have to give. Our warmest congratulations to each and every one of you, and our sincere thanks to all of those who have supported you along the way. Thank you. I now request the Dean of the Faculty of Veterinary Sciences and supervisors to introduce to me the candidates present whose names appear in the program.
Madam Vice Principal, the supervisors will now introduce the doctoral candidates.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you Olabakulu Adenobi, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis title, Acaricidal Efficacy of Crude Extracts and Isolated Flavonoids from Colpuria ornea, subspecies aurea, against Rhipicephalus tyrannicus, prepared under my supervision with Professor Lindy McGaw and Cobus Eloff as co-supervisors. In a thesis, the promovenda evaluated the potential of developing a newer and safer acaricidal drug of plant origin. The aspects addressed in this study included an extensive review of available literature, meta-analysis of the said literature, and subsequent screening of 17 plants with promising ethnobotanical leads. Of these, Scuria pinnata, Calpurnia aurea, and Sella italica demonstrated good acaricidal activity, which compared favorably with cypermethrin, a commercial product. Subsequent fractionation of Colpuria ornea led to the isolation of apigenin 7O-beta-D glycoside and apigenin 7O-rutinoside. Pilot studies showed these isolated compounds to function in part through the inhibition of acetylcholine esterase enzyme systems and potassium channels. With two separate mechanisms being targeted, the isolated compounds make good candidates for further development, as compounds with multiple mechanisms of action are known to develop resistance much slower. Her thesis thus provides a basis for the development of an anti-parasitic product that could be valuable in the treatment of multiple resistant tick strains in the country. Madam Vice Principal, I request you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I present to you Dr. Odunayo Ibrahim Aziz, who has fulfilled all the requirements for Doctor of Philosophy in Veterinary Sciences. Pansteatitis is generalized inflammation of the adipose tissue. An outbreak of pansteatitis in Nile crocodiles at the Olifants River and Loskop Dam, Kruger National Park, Mpumalanga, was responsible for the crocodile die-offs in 2008 that resulted in a huge reduction in crocodile numbers in South Africa. Despite concerted efforts by various researchers on the condition, the pathophysiology and mechanisms of pathogenesis have not been elucidated. In his thesis, Characterization of Normal Adipose Tissue and Pansteatitic Tissue in Nile Crocodile, Crocodylus niloticus, Possible Mechanisms of Pathogenesis and Pathophysiology, the promovendus characterized the adipose tissue in Nile crocodile structurally and functionally, in health and in pansteatitis, and the molecular basis of the observed changes using histomorphology, ultrastructural studies, fatty acid methyl ester analysis, and next-generation sequencing using RNA-seq for the first time in South Africa. The study identified regional variation in the histomorphology and fatty acid composition of adipose tissue and greatly reduced fatty acid content in pansteatitis. It also identified and documented the comprehensive composite transcripts expressed in this species for the first time and their possible roles in the pathogenesis of pansteatitis. Genes that were upregulated in pansteatitis were identified and annotated. These genes were found to be involved in toll-like receptor signaling, inflammatory pathways, and insulin resistance. The study showed for the first time that pansteatitis-associated crocodile die-offs could be a result of insulin resistance. I present unto you Dr. Odunayo, Madam Principal.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you Alma Estabueta, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Immunocontraception of the Domestic Horse Equus caballus using a GnRH vaccine. This was prepared under my supervision with Martin Schulman as co-supervisor. Over the last 20 to 30 years, immunocontraception has been used in various domestic and wildlife species to induce infertility and to control sex hormone-related behavior. One of the methods which makes use of anti-GnRH vaccines has the potential to be effective in both male and female animals. As the method is reversible, the loss of individual genetic potential can be prevented. In her thesis, the promovenda reported the successful downregulation of ovarian and testicular activity in the horse following vaccination against GnRH. In addition, the reversibility of GnRH vaccination could be demonstrated in mares. These results lend themselves to comparative studies in other species, such as donkeys, African elephants, and wild equids. This thesis provides new insights into the effects of anti-GnRH vaccination in horses. It has also contributed significantly to the current understanding of the endocrine control of reproduction in the horse. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you Daughter Garba Bwala, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Mycoplasma gallisepticum, Infection Dynamics and Vaccine Protection in South African Poultry, prepared under my supervision. In his thesis, the Provamendus investigated the diversity of Mycoplasma gallisepticum strains circulated within South African poultry and developed a multifactorial disease challenge model using QX-like infectious bronchitis virus to assess the efficacy of 2 commercially available vaccines against a circulating virulent strain. He also assessed the tissue distribution of both pathogens to determine the preferential sites of replication and pathogenesis. The genetic diversity of MG in South Africa was described, and results strongly suggest that reassortments between vaccine and wild-type strains have occurred in the field. It confirmed that the vaccines were still efficacious in protecting birds against challenge against the typical virulent MG field strain. Vaccination with both vaccines delayed the colonization or replication of challenge pathogens, while in some instances it accelerated the elimination of the challenge pathogens through the provision of specific and non-specific protection. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you Guido Morel de Kramer, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Pre-Parturient Caesarean Section in the Bitch, Justification, Timing, Execution, and Outcome Evaluation. In his thesis, the Provamendus identified factors that increase the odds of stillbirth and caesarean section, identified expected ranges in the hematocrit before and after caesarean section, and showed that medetomidine may safely be included in the anesthetic protocol for caesarean section. He showed that the first day of diestrus more effectively predicts the day of onset of parturition than 3 endocrine events during estrus. He showed that fixed date pre-parturient caesarean sections may safely be done 57 days after the onset of diestrus, and that plasma progesterone levels may be used to predict the time of cervical dilatation in bitches. 3 articles have been published, 3 are under review, and 3 in preparation. Aspects of the work have been presented at local and international conferences. For the first time ever, a pair of monozygotic monokaryonic twins and a pair of twins with chimerism and evidence of free martinism were identified in dogs. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you Daniela Steckler, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Assessment of Female and Male Conception Rate and Correlation to Quality of Frozen Thawed Semen in the Dog, prepared under my supervision with Professor Tom Stout of Utrecht as co-supervisor. In her thesis, the Provamenda enhanced the ability to measure the fertility of dogs and factors affecting it. She showed that the number of corpora lutea bitches have precisely indicate their maximum fecundity, despite the occurrence of multi-ovular follicles in the species. She showed that merocinin 540 detects cell membrane changes early during capacitation of fresh dog sperm. She established a novel multi-sire heterospermic insemination model to compare the fertility of bitches, semen of different dogs, and insemination methods. Using this model, she showed that it is optimal to inseminate bitches 6 days after the plasma progesterone level first exceeds 6 nanomoles per liter. The model enabled her to rank males according to their conception rates, which she correlated to their semen quality, and found that the percentage of live sperm with destabilized membranes correlated negatively, and the ability of sperm to remain viable tended to correlate positively to conception rate. 3 articles were published, and another is in preparation. Aspects of the research were presented at national and international conferences. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce you to Mabotsi Augustine Charlie, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Transcriptome Analysis of Alichia ruminantium at the hoistic bite site and during the developmental stages in cell culture, prepared under my supervision and with Janita Liebenberg and Marinda van Kleef as co-supervisors. The promovendus investigated differential expression of the E. ruminantium genes by transcriptome analysis. The study revealed that several E. ruminantium genes were exclusively up or down-regulated in different life stages of the pathogen, as well as in skin biopsies and at the tick bite site. These differentially expressed genes were considered as vaccine candidates, some of which were included in a prototype recombinant vaccine to Heartwater. This indicates that RNA sequencing can be applied successfully to search for additional antigens for use in E. ruminantium recombinant vaccines. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Science in Veterinary Science. Bongiwe Mahlobo. Iyani Raselabi. Teboho Tsotetsi. Andrea Webster. In animal-human ecosystem health, Sizana Buchle File. In veterinary epidemiology, Alida Avenant. Elizabeth Chimera. Yusuf Ngoshi. Master of Veterinary Medicine, in small animal surgery, Charles Boucher. In clinical laboratory diagnostics, Yolandi Rotenbach. In ophthalmology, Christina Boucher.
I now request the Dean of Health Sciences and supervisors to introduce to me the candidates present whose names appear in the program.
Madam Vice Principal, the supervisors will now introduce the doctoral candidates in the School of Medicine, Faculty of Health Sciences.
Madam Vice Principal, I'm delighted to introduce to you Dr. Carol Lotto, who has complied with the requirements for the degree philosophy of doctorate of philosophy in mental health, with a thesis prepared under my supervision titled "The Qualitative Affordances of Active and Receptive Music Therapy Techniques in Major Depressive Disorder and Schizophrenia Spectrum Psychotic Disorders." The promovenda examined qualitatively the verbal and the musical content that emerged during a course of individual music therapy sessions among participants with these disorders. Thematic analysis of the 131 music therapy sessions revealed that participants found a voice for what cannot always be expressed verbally, being about their interpersonal connections, increased motivation, becoming more emotionally aware, and the reclamation of their energy, spontaneity, and resilience. These contents substantively inform the mutual understanding that is crucial in therapy. Madam Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
Confer the degree, Doctor of Philosophy, with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
You, Juliet Louis Dion Mentor, who has complied with the requirements for Doctor of Philosophy in Human Genetics, with a thesis titled Identification of Rare Gene Variants in South African Breast Cancer Families Through Next Generation Sequencing, prepared under my supervision and with Professor Fourie Hubert as co-supervisor. The promovenda studied genetic breast cancer predisposition using whole exome sequencing in a group of South African women with breast cancer. This study identified variants in DNA repair genes that may contribute to early onset breast cancer that is not associated with the BRCA1 and 2 genes. These results were presented at national and international scientific meetings. The promovenda's work is extremely contemporary, and the questions and future work posed in her thesis is the future work for all researchers active in this area. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you my Bongwe Louis Mzingwane, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Molecular Characterization of Intra-Host HIV-1 Variants in ARV-naive patients and patients receiving highly active antiretroviral therapy, prepared under the supervision of Professor Caroline Timerson and Drs. Sheila Bauer and Karen Richter. In his thesis, the promovendus characterized human immunodeficiency viruses from peripheral blood mononuclear cells, the urogenital tract, and pre-treatment minority drug resistance-associated viruses, and assessed their clinical relevance. He demonstrated that proviral DNA from viruses from treatment-naive individuals may contain HIV-1 drug resistance-associated mutations not found in plasma viruses, but these did not affect treatment outcomes. He also noted that although antiretroviral therapy reduces HIV-1 replication in the urogenital tract, long-lived cells with integrated proviral DNA persist in this compartment. The presence of pre-treatment minority resistance-associated mutations in plasma viruses highlights their potential to dominate after treatment initiation. The findings, which have resulted in 3 peer-reviewed publications, have contributed to a better understanding of the effects of pre-treatment minority resistance-associated HIV-1 variants on HIV-1 persistence during antiretroviral therapy. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, the following candidates complied with all the requirements for the degree Masters of Medicine. In anesthesiology, Karen Boyson. Family Medicine, Mwamba Helene. Stephen Ukebo. Master of Medicine, Internal Medicine, Darren Joseph, with distinction. Well done. Beke Khole. Master of Medicine, Neurology, Muketwa Tsikane. In Obstetrics and Gynecology, Rector Mokhokane. Nisha Raju. In orthopedics, Mulongo Nkutsinati. In pediatrics, Maria Busema. Mashay Maharaj. Ilwani Matiba. Balisa Munyake. Makusuzana Nkosebe. Jane Belusa. Mijane Spies Harris. Master of Medicine, Pathology in Chemical Pathology, Yahati Pema. Master of Medicine, Pathology, Clinical Pathology, Jacobus Gronier. Radiological Diagnostics, Anisa Muhammad Khan. Master of Medicine in Surgery, Isabella Hubert, with distinction. Mpo Sandamela. Francisca van der Schijf, with distinction. Master of Medicine in Urology, Visani Mamitele. Master of Philosophy in Philosophy and Ethics of Mental Health, Usha Shangan. Master of Science in Pharmacology, Roxette Anderson. Kiachile Lepule. Dikiledi Matlibayane. Akanyang Rapololo. Darren Fenter, with distinction. In medical microbiology, Bong Aki Shea, with distinction. Thank you. In human physiology, Michael Kleinans. Shakira Musa with distinction. Henri van der Merwe. In reproductive biology, Gerhardus Boshoff with distinction. Madam Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the bachelor's degree of medicine and surgery. I apologize, we've still got a sports sciences, master's in sports sciences, Michelle Norville. Now we'll do the Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery, Stephanie de Wit. Kosal Jitun. Makala Kotu. Adolfina Lesetla. Tsepang Maswena. Matlatse Tlailane. Madam Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the highest certificate in sports science. In sport coaching, Tabu Maseko. Duduzele Kwabe. Madam Vice Principal, the supervisors will now introduce the doctoral candidates in the School of Healthcare Sciences.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you Temitope Coyote Bello, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Development, Implementation and Impact Evaluation of a Nutrition Education Program for Adults Living with HIV/AIDS in Abeokuta, Nigeria, prepared under my supervision and with Ms. Khada Herika as co-supervisor. In his thesis, the promovendus developed a novel theory-guided nutrition education program for adults living with HIV and AIDS in Abeokuta. He contextualized appropriate constructs of the social cognitive theory and health belief model in developing 4 education materials: a trainer's manual, flip charts, brochure, and a participant's workbook. The implementation of the nutrition education program led to significant and sustained improvements in the quality of life, nutrition knowledge, and dietary diversity of the intervention group. His study indicated that a tailored nutrition education program was vital in the health management of adults living with HIV and AIDS, and showed the benefits of the incorporation of learning theory into the nutrition education of adults with HIV and AIDS. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you Evangeline Shihlamariso Mtetwa, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy in Nursing Science with a thesis titled Developing Guidelines to Promote Community Participation and Local Accountability for Pregnant Women's Access to Basic Antenatal Care in Mpumalanga Province, South Africa, prepared under my supervision with co-supervisors Dr. Duval and Dr. Yazbek. In her thesis, the promovenda developed guidelines to promote community participation, accountability, functionality, and governance in support of pregnant women's access to basic antenatal care. The study was conducted in 2 phases, namely empirical and guideline development phases. The process of guideline development was guided by the Delphi technique rounds. The governance structures in the area were perceived to be functional and accountable to the community, although the accountability to the community was not formalized. The members of the governance structures and the community leaders identified a need to be involved in promoting the importance of antenatal care attendance in the community through health promotion activities and be accountable for it. The guidelines will assist in strengthening the knowledge and skills of the stakeholders to be involved in antenatal care services. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, I introduce to you Stepis Richard Ricoso, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy in Nursing Science with a thesis titled Indigenous Knowledge of Traditional Health Practitioners in the Management of Rigoni, Grounded Theory Approach, prepared under my supervision and Dr. Shirley Mohale as a co-supervisor. In his thesis, the promovendus developed an indigenous knowledge healing substantive theory that explains and describes the method used by traditional health practitioners in the management of childhood illnesses such as Rigoni. Western health practitioners label illnesses such as Rigoni as unknown or ill-defined, as laboratory tests and autopsies fail to display the results. There's lack of documentation of indigenous knowledge system, treatment modalities, and the management of diseases, as traditional healers' knowledge was shared orally from generation to generation. It has been recommended that the developed theory be documented, packaged, and shared for utilization in healthcare institutions. Indigenous knowledge system method on healing of illnesses must be included in the curriculum of healthcare professionals to enable them to render cultural sensitive and cultural safe care. Madam Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Masters of Occupational Therapy. Yvette van die Kerk. Ilani Viljoen. Master of Nursing Science, Persina Molekwa, with distinction. In clinical fields of study, Mulatelo Khodane. Umbaleni Lupai. In nursing management, Mapefu Apane. Fana Masimbuku. Christel Vroneman with distinction. Master of Physiotherapy, Kwena Sabasa. Madam Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Occupational Therapy. Brenda Gous. Kirsten Jordan. Anja van Rooyen. For the Bachelor of Nursing Science, Vulani Shishenga. Bachelor of Nursing Science, Education and Administration, Mariette Breitenbach. Kate Bukana. Malehela Ramatsetse. Constance Sukazi. Philip Mkoyana. We move on to the School of Health Systems and Public Health. Madam Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the master's degree of Medicine, Public Health Medicine, Bryansky Mafufosa. Masters of Public Health, Chedu Dik with distinction. Vashni Govender with distinction. Derek Mangoya. Tabani Moyo. Mpelekedeni Maluhutsi. Nadine Roberts. Tatu Setlulali. Alpheus Zitza. Master of Science in Epidemiology, Lumbani Tsotsetsi. In Public Health, Potlaku Sematlane. Madam Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the postgraduate diploma in tropical medicine and health. In general operations, France Dimou. In addition to that, in tropical medicine and health. In executive leadership, Jacob Shakung.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us give our graduates, a big round of applause for their hard work and perseverance. And I would now like to invite our graduates to applaud their families, friends, spouses, supervisors who have supported them over the years. We have now come to the end of the proceedings. Before we close, I would like to invite all present for refreshments afterwards in the marquees situated in the front of the Rembrandt Hall. You are requested to stand for the singing of the national anthem and to remain standing until the assembly has been dissolved and the academic procession has left the auditorium. The words of the national anthem are printed on the inside back cover of the program. Please rise. By the powers vested in me, I hereby dissolve this assembly of the University of Pretoria. Thank you.
Gaudeamus igitur, Iugenes dum sumus. Gaudeamus igitur, Iugenes dum sumus.